What's up? It's Alex, here to do my Game of the Year list. However, before we get into that, here are my top 5 honourable mentions.
Yeah, no. We're not doing that. Hi, I'm Hans. I'm the guy who's editing the Game of the Year videos. You may know me as the guy who also edits the On the Fence videos. These videos take time. And because of, wanting to have a life, I have decided to veto this. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, Hans, that's really mean. Why don't you just do the vid? I'll tell you why. Because fuck you. That's why. So here's my compromise. I will put his list on the screen right now. There are Alex's 5 honourable mentions. Now, back to his actual top 5.
So, we're jumping in to the main event. At number 5, I have XCOM Chimera Squad. I loved XCOM and XCOM 2, so it makes sense that I would love Chimera Squad as well. The core gameplay is similar to the previous titles, but with the focus being shifted to managing a smaller squad, who would have guessed, of units that have predefined classes. It also introduced breaching. Usually missions would start with a breach, where you assign units to different breach points, usually doors, weak walls with breaching charges, windows, stuff like that. And the amount of breaches would vary from mission to mission. If it was a longer mission, you might get 2 or 3. These breaches, they essentially give units a free action and some form of buff or debuff, like you get rooted for 1 turn, or you get a guaranteed crit, stuff like that, while aggressive or aware enemies also get the act if they aren't dealt with in your turn of the breach. I like the idea behind this, as you have to weigh up the risk reward of sending someone on their own through a door that guarantees them a crit, but you don't know what's waiting on the other side of the door, stuff like that. The predefined characters, however, became a bit of an issue the further into the game you got. Initially, you only have so many units available, but you can eventually get up to a roster of 11. Like, the 2 big problems I had with this system were that A, the difficulty spiked very early, and B, you never really had to use other characters. Like, it felt like there was no punishment for sticking with the same squad of people. So the difficulty issue became apparent at the first boss. The whole story in the lead up to it is basically you're investigating and then eventually taking down 3 factions who are secretly backed by a 4th faction who, spoiler, who are trying to destabilize the city. The boss fight at the end of the first investigation, I would say, is very difficult. It took me quite a while to get past it. However, once I got past it, the rest of the game was a breeze. Almost too easy, even when I was playing on hard. So after that, the power level of the squad became pretty nuts, to the point where basically they could kill a room in the first turn. And this is because, as mentioned, you could use the same people on every mission, so they do rank up quite quickly. The injury system is a bit weird, in that if a character gets downed, they get a permanent, in quotes, injury that gives them a negative stat. So, for example, if a character gets down in one mission, you find out that it hurt their leg, so they get -2 movement range, that kind of thing. You can get rid of those by sending the character to the infirmary, and it'll take time during which you can't use them on missions to get rid of the debuff. However, I found stuff like the negative movement range didn't make a big impact, and if the injuries I thought didn't really affect the character's gameplay, I would just ignore them. And once you get past the first boss, it's almost like the characters never get downed anyway. But other than those 2 things, it's an XCOM game. I love XCOM games. So even with the negatives, I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I am looking forward to what comes next. At number 4, I have Doom Eternal. So, if you exclude the times I helped my dad with bosses in the 2016 Doom. This is actually the first Doom game I've played since the first one on the Sega Saturn, and I actually don't have that much to say other than the combat felt amazing. The demon variety was pretty cool. The encounters never got stale. Bosses becoming regular enemies was pretty good to see. However, the big letdown for me was the last boss fight. In terms of gameplay, it was a bit of a letdown. It just felt very messy to the point where it became frustrating rather than the enjoyable, calculated mayhem that other fights felt like. Obviously, the soundtrack's amazing. That's pretty much all I got to say on Doom. So honestly, my top 3 could be swapped about and put in any order, and I'd still be okay with any one of them being my game of the year, but I've allowed recency bias to determine the order, so here we go. At number 3, I have Trials of Mana. Now, this is a 3D remake of the third installment in the Mana series, with the original being released in the 90s and eventually getting put on the Collection of Mana, which came to the Switch. Thank you, Hans, for that Christmas present. I have to say, this remake is brilliant. Everything looks amazing. The art style is extremely well done. The zones are basically the same layout as they were in the original. The enemies in the zones are the same. The up-to-date soundtrack is beautiful. Of course, the story is the same, with you picking a party of 3 from 6 available characters. First character will be the main one, whose intro sequence you experience, and you encounter all 6 no matter who you pick. Story lifted straight from the original, and I loved replaying every second of it, even though it was less than a year ago I played the original. There are 3 main villains in the game, and depending on who you pick as your main character, one of them will overcome the others and become the ultimate boss, which is such a genius story mechanic that leads into like actual gameplay and consequences and stuff. But of course that was in the original as well. The new stuff they've added a new class that's tied directly to a new dungeon. So class 4, very original name, that you have to unlock to gain access to the new dungeon with the new boss, along with a new game plus. I love this remake so much, I made sure to 100% it, and it just felt like a love letter to all the Mana series fans out there. At number 2, I have Tell Me Why. Now, Don't Nod made one of my favourite episodic narrative games, Life is Strange. Then they made Life is Strange 2. And while it was alright, it just didn't have the same magic as the first one. So when I saw this, I was a wee bit sceptical, but also a bit hopeful that it captured that magic again. Firstly, I have to commend it for being able to include a trans character without feeling overly forced, and it's quite evident they put in the work to make sure it was a good representation. The acknowledgement that, yeah, this is something that trans people have to deal with, and how crappy they can be treated, but at the same time, making it so it wasn't the defining factor of the game was nice to see as someone who's sitting outside of the LGBTQ plus community. And I love a good mystery, and the whole story is revolved around the main characters trying to resolve what actually happened in the lead up to the night of their mother's death. And initially it seems pretty cut and dry, but the more they explore the house, they revisit the past, they start to ask the awkward questions to the town and everyone who's connected to their mother. The more they uncover like something dark and troubling had actually been hidden from them, and the pacing felt pretty good, and it definitely felt like Don't Nod had found the magic again. So it's come down to this, has it? I've gone through 9 games. That's like 2 years worth of games for me. all to come down to find out what my number one is. And I'm sure it's no surprise to anybody, because my number one game of the year is, of course, Hades. We all know I'm a Supergiant fanboy. Hell, I'm probably the only person in the world who picked Pyre as their game of the year in 2017. Damn, this game's so good. The gameplay is amazing. The weapons are really well designed. The characters are so damn pretty. Hell, you can even experience true heartbreak. Thank you, Juica. I mean, God, the game has it all, of course. It wouldn't be me if I didn't mention the soundtrack, because my God, did they smash it. I could go on, but just go back, listen to the Game Club. Can't wait to see what Supergiant do next, because, let's be honest, whatever year it comes out, it's probably going to be my game of the year. Let's hope it's a sequel to Pyre.